is En Sabanur.
Oh dear.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full X-Men 97 episode 10 finale video. There was so much going on, so many Easter eggs, so many teasers for season 2. I hope we get like 10 seasons of this show. Like, there was just so much baked into this. Probably one of the best things that Marvel has been doing the past couple of years. Please do this forever. 100 years, X-Men 97, please. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. And careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet. We'll just start at the beginning, work our way through shot by shot, talk about Easter eggs, WTF moments, and everything that they're doing to set up season 2. Good news is we know the show's been renewed for season 2. They're most of the way done working on it. They're working on season 3 right now, and it sounds like they just got renewed for season 4. The actual episode is titled Tolerance is Extinction Part 3. It was a 3-part finale, basically. A lot of people confused about that because the last 3 episodes had the exact same title, like Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. They'll probably do the same thing in future seasons too, where you have multi-episode arcs. They did it all the time on the classic series. The title was a reference, again, to what Bastion said in previous episodes. He also said it again in this episode, like everybody doing the meme, oh, he said the thing inside the thing. He'd been worried about the extinction of the human race because so many mutants were being born with each new generation. Within a couple hundred years, the entire planet would be nothing but mutants. It'd be more like My Hero Academia, where most people have powers. They use the very serious-sounding heartbeat over the Marvel animation logo, I think to be a metaphor for Wolverine's heartbeat, like him slowly clinging on to life. They were very careful in the episode to remind you that he is still alive. He does still have his healing factor, he just lost the adamantium. There are a couple changes they made to the X-Men intro. As they do in each episode, they always change it a little bit. There's a brand new scene of Magneto and Professor X when they were young, fighting off mercenaries at a campfire, which is a reference to the visions that they have later inside Magneto's mind. Basically, new scenes of their backstory together that they didn't show you during the original X-Men the Animated Series. Like, this is all brand new scenes that they baked into this. But it does cover some of the storyline that they did during the live-action movies in X-Men First Class during the 1960s when Magneto and Professor X met for the first time. It's a very similar vibe, like them meeting each other, learning about each other's powers for the first time, but it's all his memories, it's all Magneto's memories inside his mind. It's not an actual flashback to then. They brought back the scene of Jean Grey going full Dark Phoenix form because she does that in this episode, or she doesn't go Dark Phoenix, but she goes into Phoenix form. They brought back the previous scene of Professor X seeing the Hellfire Club in his visions, Emma Frost closing the door, meaning that she blocked him from spying on them, reading their minds. I think to set up the idea that Emma Frost is still around because they have a teaser for her at the end of the episode too, like, oh, she's out there, she'll be back in season 2. There was a lot of moments like that in the episode, like little teasers seeding things that they'll pay off in season 2, like, oh, remember this character, he's going to be important or she's going to be important next season. All the old school Kitty Pryde fans out there cheering, seeing her on the board at the end of the episode, like, yay, she'll be here in season 2. Don't worry, I'll talk more about that board when we get to that part of the episode. There were so many cameos in this episode, and they paid off so many fan theories. They paid off a couple of my big theories, too. All the people in the middle here are still in Prime Sentinel form because that's how they start the episode. They don't heal them till later in the episode. Notice Gambit is also still running with them during all the intros in this part too. They never took him out, also because of that post-credit scene, meaning that Apocalypse will probably resurrect him as his Horseman of Death, paying off my theory. You can kind of tell with the way they do these intros, like these are the things that we want you to pay attention to, like remember these things, they'll be important for later. So any weird detail in the background of these intros could be super important. During the actual opening scene, they start with a flashback, like I said, to what looks like the 1960s based on the music. They're inside Magneto's mind though, but it's not really clear till later in this scene. So it's not just an actual flashback, it's just Professor X trying to keep Magneto alive and get him out of his mind before it completely collapses, because what he's done has essentially shattered Magneto's mind. Notice when the scene starts, they have that song, Turn, Turn, Turn. That could also be a metaphor for the end of the episode with everybody being lost to the time stream. A lot of references to time travel in this episode. This whole conversation that they had is very much in the tone of their backstory in the comics and in the live-action movies during X-Men First Class when they met for the first time. When he says Professor X must be crazy for being so optimistic about coexistence between mutants and people, like people just getting along in general, it's a reference to what Magneto said when he was back on Genosha in episode 5, before the big attack went down. We get to basically replay the events of them revealing to each other they were mutants and they've met other mutants. So this is before they banded together, started working together, and created Cerebro together. Once that happened, Professor X enhanced his abilities, looking for mutants all over the planet, and that's when he started forming the X-Men for the first time.
Rogue.
Once Magneto starts to hear Rogue's cries from the real world, like on the actual Asteroid M space station, that's when he starts to realize that this is just a memory that they're inside his mind. But it's still fractured, so he doesn't fully understand who he is, he doesn't remember everything, he doesn't remember that he's Magneto or that he has powers. And basically, Professor X has to talk him around until he eventually comes to. It's a great speech, like their entire speech that plays out over the first part of the episode is some peak drama. It is basically him telling Magneto that he'll stay with him even if it means him being trapped inside his dying mind, which would also kill both of them. But a lot of what's happening here is a reference to Onslaught from the comics. Even though they didn't go full Onslaught, I wasn't expecting it, but there was always a chance just because they went for so many big comic book deep cuts this season. During the original comics that they were adapting for last week's episode, Fatal Attractions, when Wolverine gutted Magneto and he retaliated by ripping the adamantium out of his body, Professor X basically used his powers to essentially lobotomize Magneto, and the trauma from that eventually created Onslaught, or led to the creation of Onslaught. So all these references to them being trapped inside Magneto's shattered mind and slowly dying is a reference to the creation of Onslaught. But then he uses his powers to force Magneto to use his powers to restore Earth's electromagnetic field so that they get all their electronics back. And we get a bunch more cameos. There's a Silver Samurai Japan cameo again. We saw him in a previous episode just to show you it happening all over the world. The Avengers are in the White House, Iron Man, Captain America, and this is the version of Iron Man from the 90s Iron Man series from all the Spider-Man crossover episodes too. It's like the exact same version because this is all meant to be canon to the same Earth now. That's also why he's wearing similar Iron Man armor from a lot of those crossovers. Inside New York City, we get a Daredevil cameo. This is also the version of Daredevil from Spider-Man the Animated Series and those crossovers. There was also a canceled Daredevil animated series during the 90s that was going to be this version, just continuing on to his own series. Notice all hell's breaking loose. He's still trying to stop all the looters. Like, yeah, it's going crazy, but we still got to stop all this crime that's going on now. Speaking of Daredevil, in real life, Marvel just had their upfronts where they showcased all the upcoming TV series they're doing in the next couple of years, mostly live-action series. One of them was Daredevil Born Again. They released a teaser, but they didn't post it online. I might do a video for that in the next couple of days. We will get those live-action Daredevil episodes March 2025. But this animated version of Daredevil isn't being played by Charlie Cox. All this stuff is meant to be happening in its own universe called the 90s universe, essentially, where everything is canon to the same Earth. We get a Doctor Strange cameo performing surgery while using his magic because all the machines were taken out by Magneto's epic worldwide EMP, so he has to use his magic. If you remember, there was a big Doctor Strange crossover with X-Men the Animated Series back in the day too. It's the exact same version. We start to get more voiceover from Bastion during all these cameos now that the machines everywhere are coming back online. Val sees all the Prime Sentinels coming back online. Cable seemingly defeats Jean Grey. She's sinking beneath the water, but we know where that's going. Do not count the Phoenix out. Then Bastion emerges in more of an upgraded robotic-looking form, way more powerful. Not his final boss form, we'll get to that too, because it's also right out of the comics. But the whole idea is he's basically got the X-Men from Team Gold dead to rights. Also, the ones up on Asteroid M don't look like they're doing so hot either. Then this whole Bastion mother storyline was a little bit weird. Like there was a twist during the episode where at this part, Bastion claims his mother begged Professor X to take Bastion as a child and become part of his school for mutants where he would have been on that original X-Men team. It takes a little while later in the episode to get the full story. Apparently his mother lied to him when he was a child and said that Professor X wouldn't take him, when in reality, Professor X was the one that told the truth in the previous episode when he explained his backstory with Bastion, saying that when he arrived and told his mother about him being a mutant and coming to his school, she didn't want to hear any talk of mutants and basically turned him away, and that was the end of it. My guess is that she then turned around and lied to Bastion as a child before his powers had fully activated so he couldn't tell that she was lying and said that Professor X didn't want him. Probably low-grade seeding some of his hate against mutants. Obviously other reasons too, because he has all of Master Mold and Nimrod's memories, all the other collected memories of all Sentinels. That definitely did not help. But it takes Storm, Cyclops, a couple of the other characters trying to talk some sense into him during the episode about what really happened. Like, no, it didn't go down that way. You were actually offered a spot, but your mom wouldn't hear it. He makes another Operation Zero Tolerance reference to the comic book storyline. He moves things to the final phase of his plan, and it's a big callback to the original X-Men the Animated Series episodes and a storyline from the comics. The final phase of the plan is to essentially turn everyone into a Prime Sentinel or control everyone somehow so that he can control all humans, protecting everyone from themselves. If you haven't watched those original episodes in a long time, during Season 1, we actually found out that this was part of Master Mold's secret plan to replace all world leaders with robots, essentially, that he could control, so he could start controlling the world and make it more efficient. He came to the same conclusion that Bastion is coming to here, and the reason why Bastion came to this conclusion, that humans were the greatest threat to themselves after they dealt with mutants, is actually Master Mold's memories just resurfacing inside Bastion. Remember, he's meant to be the hybrid of Master Mold and Nimrod, born as a human child. So he has all these memories from Master Mold, all these old plans that Master Mold had, just cooking in his brain. They also did a similar arc in the comics where Sentinels eventually took care of mutants, and then they determined that humans were the greatest threat to themselves, since they were going after humans too. How ironic. We get some more cameos when the Prime Sentinels invade Wakanda. We get a Black Panther and a Dora Milaje cameo. Notice he's wearing the cape in the Marvel Knights Black Panther suit from the 90s, because we're talking about the 90s here during the present day of the series. There was also a Black Panther cameo during the original animated series during the Asteroid M episodes. They invade the White House, come after the Avengers that are still there, and the President. We get another Daredevil cameo scene. This time it's outside Josie's bar. We get a Cloak and Dagger cameo scene. They never actually cameoed on the original 90s X-Men the Animated Series, but they did appear on Avengers Assemble, some other animated series, and they had their own live-action series more recently. There are a bunch of Russian superheroes from the comics too. We get Omega Red again. Remember, he woke up in his tank after Magneto's EMP blast. This is Crimson Dynamo behind him, and this is Dark Star behind them. Her whole thing is the ability to manipulate Dark Force energy from the Dark Force dimension. It's the same place Cloak's cloak teleports them through when he's using his powers. Bastion continues his voiceover and says the name of the episode. He says the thing inside the thing, everybody pointing at the screen. There are a bunch more cameos on Genosha, Psylocke, Northstar, his sister Aurora. Then Bastion turns his attention to Cable, who's still trying to fight the programming from Mr. Sinister implanted in him, making fun of him for all the times he failed to stop him. They reveal that he's tried 200 times to come back into the past to change things unsuccessfully. There are a bunch of metaphors about bad moms and bad dads, and it turns out Bastion also very sensitive about his mother as a topic. Cable uses his mother to really piss him off. He also references the Phoenix Force right on cue, just as Jean Grey then resurfaces out of the water in Phoenix form. Confirming my theory from last week's episode, like if she couldn't stop Cable, which is normal telekinesis, how could she do this? Well, she has the Phoenix Force. It's more powerful than anything else that's happening right here. She ironically repairs the control collar that they used on her during the Phoenix episodes to disable her powers on Bastion to disable his control of all the other Prime Sentinels. Then she uses her powers to basically rip out all Mr. Sinister's enhanced DNA that he's combined with his own, giving him all of his abilities and his unnaturally long lifespan, like he's functionally immortal. Basically turning him into this old, shriveled man, setting up this really big zinger from Morph. Really solid burn there. It also kind of makes Mr. Sinister seem like the only reason he was doing all this was just to make himself look younger, make himself look better. In reality, that's not the case. Like, he was just obsessed with creating the perfect mutant, the most powerful being. That was why he was so intent on Cable being his prize. Like, you promised me that Cable would be my prize. Then the way she explains it, the Phoenix Force isn't possessing her the same way it was before. She was just briefly able to tap into it, so it's not going to control her like it did before. It's not a permanent thing. She also finally refers to Cable as her son, and he smiles, so they basically accepted each other as a found family, even though she's more of like an aunt, I would say, probably closer to an aunt. Then Bastion goes into final boss form. This is also right out of the comics. He beats Cable with his own arm after ripping it off, but because his arm that he ripped off is essentially created through the techno-organic virus inside Cable, he absorbs the techno-organic virus and it enhances his own power. This form is right out of the Second Coming storyline in the comics. After the original Bastion arc, Operation Zero Tolerance, he came back and got way more powerful after absorbing the techno-organic virus. The circumstances were a little bit different, but he did wind up looking like this. They check in with Asteroid M just to remind you all these characters are still alive and kicking. Professor X and Magneto still stuck inside Magneto's mind, Wolverine on the edge of death, but his healing factor is keeping him alive. This is still kind of continuing the end of that Fatal Attractions comic book storyline. When they start their psychic Zoom call with Jean Grey and Cyclops, Professor X starts referencing Onslaught when he says both he and Magneto's minds will shatter if he doesn't save Magneto before his mind totally breaks with Professor X inside it. We learn Bastion's plan now is to take Asteroid M, just crash it into Earth, basically pull an Ultron from Avengers Age of Ultron, like it was the same thing that Ultron was trying to do. It's also the same thing that Magneto did during the original Asteroid M episodes, except Magneto caused it to crash into the ocean so it didn't hurt anybody. Rogue makes a couple different Gambit references, also reminding you about Gambit, like don't forget. First, she says the cards are always in the X-Men's favor. Then when she clocks Bastion, she makes another Gambit reference to remember it. This moon she throws Bastion into is Apocalypse's base, one of his bases, that's his face on it. Important for later, like, hey, remember, Apocalypse is out there, he's still alive. He almost gets her with his teleporting powers, but then Sunspot enters the fight. We get to see some of his powers on display. All these human world leaders start to ponder taking action against the mutants and enacting the Magneto protocols, which is also right out of the Fatal Attractions comic book storyline. The actual protocols themselves were a little bit different in the comics. They were mostly meant to disable Magneto's powers on Earth, which did not wind up working. On the show, it's just meant to be a bunch of missiles that will destroy Asteroid M. Presumably, they created the Magneto protocols when they found out that Magneto created Asteroid M in the first place on the original animated show. Black Panther is there is because he's a world leader. He's the king of Wakanda too. He's also not a mutant, so they don't hate him. But as he does, he and Captain America are the only ones talking sense into them, advising them to slow their roll, which they do not listen to. They still fire the missiles. Notice when he's flipping through Magneto's file, it lists him as Omega level. That's from the comics. Also, the layout of this page looks like it's right out of the comics too. We get a bunch more cameo scenes back in Magneto's mind. On the boat, we actually get a Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver cameo scene, Rogue because of their previous relationship, and Polaris, his other daughter. It's basically like everybody he cares about on that boat. The X-Men on Asteroid M then fight Bastion. We get a cool montage of them all using their powers together to try and take him down. We get a full beam off too, like show me how powerful your Schwartz is. This isn't even Cyclops at full power. He doesn't use his full power till like the end of the episode when he's really trying to blow up the station and rips off his visor. They also use the fight scene here to give Jubilee some time to shine that she never really got during the original series. Like, what are you gonna do? Kill me with the 4th of July? More Jubilee jokes. We also get a ton of zingers from Beast in this episode, like many different ones across the episode in different circumstances.
The Greeks did love horses. And irony.
This time he goes full literal Trojan horse, tricking Bastion, thinking that it's a regular Sentinel, using it to step on him after they've hijacked it. We get a Sauron cameo scene from Morph as he changes briefly into his form. There are a couple moments like that with Morph in this episode where he changes into a couple of different characters. And Cyclops tries taking some of their own medicine that they've been preaching this season about tolerance, acceptance, coexistence, and tries to win over Bastion with words, not with a fight. It's meant to be the big metaphor of the season. It's all about tolerance and acceptance, and that being a good thing, not a bad thing. Just as it seems like they're starting to get through with him, the missiles actually start blowing up the asteroid's core. Bastion even relents and accepts their help, but it seems like he's not fast enough, and he gets sucked into the core, being vaporized. I know based on the way everybody else ended the episode, people will wonder if Bastion's still alive, being sucked into some other time and space somewhere there too, but I think the idea is that he was destroyed before that happened. So if anybody does not come back in Season 2, I think Bastion is at the top of that list. When Asteroid M starts flying apart, we get a Fantastic Four Reed Richards cameo scene from Morph. He would be from the animated Fantastic Four series that crossed over with the Spider-Man Secret Wars episodes, also canon to this Earth. Sunspot saved Jubilee. I think the reason why she's breathing fine here in space is because they're inside Earth's atmosphere at this point, but they basically fly off together as Asteroid M is in the middle of teleporting everyone across time and space, blowing up. So they are still alive at the end of the episode in present day. When Beast makes the reference about not going out like the dinosaurs, he's talking about the giant asteroid impact that eventually led to the death of the dinosaurs. Like, it wasn't the asteroid impact itself, even though that did cause a lot of damage nearby. The original asteroid that killed off the dinosaurs basically started off a chain reaction that eventually led to the death of all dinosaurs around the entire planet. Basically, a lot of really, really bad climate change. But essentially, they all wind up saving the day, saving the Earth together, as you do in an X-Men story. Like, they all work together as a team to save the day. We also get Cyclops and Jean Grey doing a psychic Zoom call with Cable to say goodbye to him, also to let him know they love him. Like, very, very emotional scene. I'm not crying, you're crying. He references his father, Corsair. We didn't see him this season as far as I could tell. Like, maybe he was in the background somewhere in one of the Shi'ar episodes. But he did show up a bunch during the original animated series, so maybe he'll come back in some future episode. Notice they're also having this conversation inside DeMeo's diner, named after the showrunner, Beau DeMeo. Jean Grey also dampens Cyclops' powers so Cable can see his eyes normally, and this is also a reference to a previous episode of the animated series where she did something similar in Phoenix form just to show you how powerful she was. Then back on Asteroid M, he unloads the biggest eye blast you've ever seen. It's meant to be a reference to his scene in all the intros when he's on the mountaintop, basically slicing the mountain in half with his eye blast. On the car radio, notice the radio station is set to 1996. This full number here is the year the final season, the final episode of the original series aired. Notice all the people who formerly were Prime Sentinels have all been healed. They all seem like they're fine. We get a cameo from Spider-Man and his original Mary Jane, who he found after the events of his original animated series finale. Bo DeMeo confirmed that he did find his original Mary Jane, like this is that version. This guy in the Letterman jacket over here too is kind of giving me Flash Thompson vibes. Morph does Wolverine a solid and changes into Jean Grey to try and get him to hold on longer, telling him she loves him. I think Morph also has feelings for Wolverine too, so that's kind of why he did this as well. Their plan doesn't work fast enough, but Professor X is able to finally help Magneto escape his mind before it collapses and remember who he is, that he is Magneto, he has powers. When he says Magneto lives, that's also a line out of the comics too. And he uses his powers to finally stop Asteroid M from falling and pull it back into space. There are a bunch more Easter eggs here too on planet Earth when they're all looking around Times Square here. VistaCorp is the company that Ant-Man used to work for in the MCU before he became Ant-Man. There's a Stark Industries ad up here at the top. This is also a billboard for Sunspot's family's company. But just as they're saving the day, you see Asteroid M seemingly break into pure energy, like this giant explosion of energy, then scatters across the sky. But I'm sure before the end of the episode, everybody had this theory, like, what if they were just teleported across time and space? Because it didn't look like they were being blown to bits. It looked like they were being teleported in an explosion. They cut to 6 months later. Most people have assumed that everybody in space died. The X-Mansion is still chained up, still in ruins, but Forge is down in the lab, like combing through looking for gear. Notice he's got a board with the status of all the different X-Men. It's actually meant to be a reference to the end credit scene cards where they actually show you the status of all the different X-Men on the screen here. But he's basically trying to keep the X-Men organization running, so he's just keeping a tally of where everybody is, whether they're presumed dead, whether they're just missing, whether they've gone AWOL and they're still alive on planet Earth, or if they're on some other planet. The news broadcaster is saying that Graydon Creed is running for president of the United States against President Kelly. That's a season 2 teaser. We'll also probably see the Purifiers come back with him too. Gonna be a couple different timelines that we'll visit in season 2. Kind of what they've been doing during the Loki series. Then we get Bishop finally coming back, finally walking into the lab. This is Forge from present day, who hasn't met him yet, but they're friends in the future, which he jokes about, like, oh, we haven't met yet. I know there'll be tons of questions about this too, just going through the actual board on Forge's wall here. You got Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Beast, Magneto, Nightcrawler, Jubilee, Sunspot, Professor X, Morph, Rogue, Archangel, Wolverine, and Cable all missing or presumed dead because they were either in the explosion of the mass teleportation or the ones who were on planet Earth when the explosion happened have just taken off. I think the reason why Archangel is missing, presumed dead, is because he probably took off looking for Apocalypse again, so he kind of went AWOL basically. Remember, Archangel was one of the 4 horsemen of Apocalypse, and Apocalypse does show up referencing the 4 horsemen at the end of the episode. Jubilee and Sunspot have gone AWOL, meaning that they're not dead because they weren't in the path of the blast. They probably just took off together on a long vacation. Cable's also gone AWOL too, but because he's trying to figure out where everybody was teleported to in time and space. So Cable is still in present day as far as we know. The other people on the board, like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, are listed as being off-planet. They're probably either on another plane of existence or in another dimension. That's probably what that means. Colossus is active and fine on this planet. Magic, his sister, Colossus's sister, is also active and fine. As is Iceman. A lot of people wondering when we're going to see Iceman this season. Havoc, Exodus, Kitty Pryde, and Emma Frost. Everybody been wondering this season if there'd be a Kitty Pryde cameo. It sounds like all those characters, like the ones that are still around and active, that aren't listed as being AWOL, will come back and be part of the X-Men team on this Earth in present day. Like you got a bunch of different X-Men teams in different times and places across the multiverse. The X-Men die all the time. We've been doing this for a long time. This isn't our first rodeo. So basically they'll band together in the present day of the universe and start to find out where everybody got teleported to across the timeline. Then we actually check in with all the different groups to the different places they got teleported to. We see Rogue, Nightcrawler, Magneto, Professor X, and Beast got teleported to ancient Egypt in 3000 BC and wind up finding young Apocalypse before he was enhanced with celestial technology. Like totally chill dude, fun to hang out with Apocalypse. Cyclops and Jean Grey were sent to the future in 3960 AD, like very distant future. Crest Coast that they speak of is actually based on a solo comic book title called The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. Is this alternate reality future adventure that Cyclops has involving a lot of the other characters that are close to him, like a version of Jean Grey, a version of Rachel Summers, a version of Cable. but it's all meant to be an alternate reality version from a distant future. I think they've simplified that for the TV show. In all the different places that people got teleported to are in the same timeline, just different points along that one timeline, not alternate realities. But the idea is in this post-apocalyptic place, it's long after, like many millennia after Apocalypse has conquered the world. So like Apocalypse has been ruling over the planet for a long, long time. Mother Ascani is just an alternate reality version of Rachel Summers, who was the daughter of Cyclops and Jean Grey from an alternate reality, who winds up getting lost in the time stream, creating this tribe in the distant future, like the Clan Ascani, as she says. This is all out of a super deep-cut comic book.
We're a long way from Crest Coast, Sapien Cast.
Some of you also probably recognize the voice actor. It's actually celebrity cameo here. It's Gates McFadden doing Mother Ascani, basically an older, alternate version of Rachel Summers. Then we also get another alternate reality future young version of Nathan, aka Cable. What they might do on the show, though, is because I think this is all going to be from the exact same timeline, just different points along the timeline, they'll find out that this is the future that Cable as a child wound up getting sent to eventually. So even though it was different in the comic, this version of Cable that they meet on the show will actually be the real version of Cable who they know as an adult, but they never knew him as a child. But you have to remember, at this point in this place, Apocalypse has been ruling over the world for a long, long time. So we'll probably see at least 3 different versions of Apocalypse on the show in Season 2. Then we go back to ancient Egypt. This base that they see of Apocalypse is right out of the Blood of Apocalypse comic book, which they might be using for the storyline in Season 2, or part of it for the storyline. And I love the look on everyone's faces and the way they react when they realize who they've met, like, oh, it's Apocalypse. Ending on a zinger from Beast.
Oh dear.
The reason why they use the to be continued card is because they'd already been renewed through Season 3, Season 4 now, I think, so they've been working on Season 2 for like a year or more now. So a lot of those episodes are probably good to go at this point. We might get Season 2 episodes next year, like fingers crossed. Do not want to wait like 3-4 years to get another season. I will do a much bigger video for Season 2 tomorrow. But notice this time, during the end credits, they actually update the roster display, removing a bunch of X-Men from it because so many of them got displaced across the timeline in different places. Then, because it is a Marvel production, of course we get a post-credit scene. It'd be weird if there was no post-credit scene, at least in the finale. In present-day Genosha, in the main timeline, like main universe here, Apocalypse returns in the present because remember, he came back at the end of the original series, so he's still alive in present day, just kind of hiding in the shadows this whole time. But notice the voice actor is new because the original voice actor passed away a while ago, so RIP. Really love the original voice actor for Apocalypse. He comments on all the death and destruction and pain that everyone is feeling, all the mutants, and picks up a burnt piece of one of Gambit's playing cards, sensing their pain, and goes out on the word death.
So much death.
Confirming my theory that he will probably resurrect Gambit as his Horseman of Death like he did in the comics, which also came from the Blood of Apocalypse storyline. So it just feels like they're queuing up a couple really big deep cuts and a couple very clear storylines and references to the comics in Season 2. But there were so many references, so many Easter eggs. Episode was such a banger. I was so happy with the way the season went down. Like, I could not have been more happy with the way things went. You can just see all the people that made the show saying, how dare you doubt us? Kevin Feige better give us like 10 seasons of this show now. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments, all your favorite moments from the episode. And if you have any big questions you want me to address for Season 2, just write them below in the comments and I'll try to add them to that video. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up. I'll start doing more Season 2 videos. And then we have a bunch of other trailers that Marvel released at their big upfronts for the live action stuff. I'll try to do some videos for that stuff too, but they didn't post those online. Everybody click here for my X-Men 97 Season 2 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that. And click here for that Daredevil Born Again trailer video and the other trailers that they just released at their big upfronts. I'll update that link too as soon as I post those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.